Jeffrey Brown has more on the housing situation nationwide.
And for that, I'm joined by Nicholas Retsinas, Director of the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University. Welcome to you.
Nice to be here.
So we've just seen one very hot market. Where else do you see this kind of activity?
That is among the hottest markets. Over the past several years, the two coasts particularly have had the fastest rate of home price appreciation. There are a couple of other spots, but essentially it's bicoastal.
And are the factors driving it similar to what Jeff Kay was showing us in Southern California?
I think generally true. I mean, the housing market across the country has been very prosperous. Last year, nationally, home prices went up a little over 10%. But in those local areas, you do have the supply constraints that were alluded to, and you have growing demand. The result is high prices.
Now, this is not the case everywhere. There are some places where it's flat or even prices falling. Tell us about that.
Sure. A couple years ago, there were nominal drops in places like San Jose, places like Austin, places like Salt Lake City.
Some of these around the tech.
Yeah, all around
bubble.
the tech. Today, there are a handful of places, pockets of small metropolitan areas in the south and southwest where there is a flattening. So no, it's not across the board. Some places are hotter than others.
But what makes things flat? What is special about those particular areas or regions?
Well, it is local. It is local. It's demand and supply.
Just as they say about buying a home. Right?
Absolutely. People don't buy homes in the United States. They buy it in particular areas, even particular neighborhoods. And it's the factors in those neighborhoods that influence prices the most.
And so it is really tied to the local economy.
It is very much so. Overall, the market's been affected by low interest rates. But the particular spikes, I think, are much more directly related to local factors.
Now, the question that has been raised in this piece, and I think probably you and I were talking about that, I don't know where you are, but nothing gets people's interest more than their homes, the price of their homes, what's happening to it as soon as a for sale sign goes up. This is of interest to people, right?
Oh, very, very much so. For most Americans, their home is the bulk of their wealth. That is how they have created wealth, how they've accrued wealth, and it far outweighs what they have in the stock market.
And the question that Jeff Kay has put on the table in his piece is about this boom versus bubble.
Right.
Now, what are the factors that help a person determine what's going on?
Well, it's clearly a boom in that the rate of appreciation has been just so staggering. Again, double-digit appreciation. The bubble question is it prone to a sharp correction or to a sharp fall? And there are disputes about that. Ultimately, though, I think you go back to the fundamentals. Look at the demand. Are we forming new households? If we are, they have to have places to live. Are there constraints on supply? To the extent there are constraints on supply and the market can't respond freely, then you're unlikely to see sharp corrections.
Do we see the kind of speculative churn that Jeff Kay showed us in Southern California? Do you see that elsewhere where people are buying, flipping them rather quickly?
We do see in selected markets like California where there has been an increase in investor purchases. In some places, double what it was 5 years ago. It's hard to tell. We don't have good data to what extent that's purely for speculation. Some of that may be second homes. But you're absolutely right, and he was right. If investors are coming in large measure, they are in large measure coming in for resale, as opposed to the homeowner that still is interested in consumption, that is living in the home.
And this means in terms for low-income housing, that's a problem in other areas of the country.
It's a real problem. This has been a story of the last several years of the winners and the losers. Those who have owned a home have been winners. Those who have not are losers. And with this price appreciation, there are many people who are going to be left behind for a good long time.
Now, the way Jeff has laid it out there was one way of looking at it is that homes might be overvalued and could fall. Do you see signs of that in specific places yet?
Well, I don't think it's going to be possible in areas like Southern California to maintain this rate of appreciation. Over time, it has to be reconciled with income growth. Because if you buy a home, you're generally borrowing money. And if you're borrowing money, you got to pay it back. And that's related to how much you earn over time. So at some point, there's got to be a closer fit. But I think given those fundamentals, you're more likely to see stagnating prices as opposed to falling prices.
Mm-hmm. The other way of looking at it is that people have to live somewhere, and so they don't necessarily have to turn them over.
Yeah, really, what determines a bubble is generally if you're forced to sell. Home prices are an interesting phenomenon in economics. They have they're often called sticky prices.
Sticky
which is,
prices.
yeah, you put your home on the market and you think this is what it's worth, and you find out other people don't think what it's worth. What you're likely to do is just take it off the market, unless you've lost your job and you've had to move. So that which might determine a bubble in selected areas, look at that economy, look at what's happening at the jobs. That'll determine where prices go.
So the individual should really look at his or her own local economy, or I guess what I'm asking is, how much is it a local phenomenon when we think about what's happening to housing prices as opposed to our national economy?
Well, it is affected nationally because we have national home markets for loans, for mortgages.
Right.
And certainly low interest rates have propelled and undergirded this market. Particular rates of appreciation above the norm have to do with local factors. So a person in a particular area should, yes, look at their own economy, but also look in the mirror. If they're pretty sure they're not going to have to sell, they could probably ride through any sort of correction. So those are the factors you really need to look at most closely.
And finally, how important are these factors we're talking about the housing market? How important are those to our national economy?
Oh, it has shored up the economy. Many of us believe, even during a recession, it was the housing sector that kept us through, the ability of people to refinance and take out cash. Just one specific number to give you an example. Home building accounts for about 5% of our economy. But over the last 5 years, it's accounted for 12% of our average growth. So it has disproportionately contributed to this economy.
Okay, Nicholas Retsinas, thank you very much.
Thank you.